Hi, everybody. We are back again with another one of your questions about work. And Min and I were just saying a classic combination, Min and me. We are startup investors in the future of work. And every day we take one of your questions about work and we try to give a perspective on it. And so this is a very common question, I feel like, for this time of year, as plenty of people finish school. We just did New Grad Week. And then we talked about getting jobs, but now starting a job. So it's day one. I show up and I've definitely had this feeling of like, what am I supposed to do now? It's like if you've seen that Robert Redford movie, The Candidate, he like wins being the senator and he's like, what now? And I feel like this is the first job version of that. So Min, would love any wisdom on what you do. It's day one.
Well, hopefully you've had a chance to get to know your teammates before day one. But let's presume that you've done that and you're like at the office now or at your virtual office, wherever you may be. And I think if you don't know what you should be doing, your teammates know. And obviously this varies on the role that you're coming into and the team that you might be on. But generally speaking, I do think that the first, I don't know, 2 weeks or so, maybe more, depending on how big and vast your organization is, you should just spend a lot of time doing one-on-ones and understanding what are everybody's like roles themselves, because even within the same team, people might have different specialties or projects that they're working on. And then I think what you're trying to understand is like, where are everyone's priorities and how are they spending their time? And depending on what role you play, in what ways can you contribute, or if you're in more of a managerial position, how can you help prioritize or set guidance or direction? I think a lot of one-on-ones is kind of my short answer. What do you think? You've done this more often than I.
Well, I definitely have had the first job many times and felt out of place many times in like 4 or 5 different careers. So I definitely feel that. I think 100%, we did this episode a few days ago on what to do when you're promoted. And there's this book, The First 90 Days, which I actually think is good general advice book, even though we're not giving advice for people in any new role. And there is a honeymoon period in the beginning where the power of those one-on-ones is both that it allows you to figure out what's going on and you get to know people. You build a foundation of respect before they want or need anything from you. You not only understand their priorities, you understand how they think, what their feelings are about the company. And one way of thinking about it is, what's your job when you have a job? Your job is to do the job. Duh. Okay, well, what does that mean? One level, it means performing a role that is of service to the organization. That, in theory, is why you've been hired. And in theory, you could show up on day one and be like, well, the organization tries to, I was a management consultant. It's like the organization tries to consult to people. I'm a consultant. My job is to consult. I didn't know how to do that, really. And so what often happens, particularly early in somebody's career, is that the proxy they use, which isn't always a great proxy, but it's the best available at times, for what does the organization want, is what do the people around me want? What does my boss want? What do my colleagues want? And then just trying to be useful to them. And of course, in an ideal world, your boss would help reduce this anxiety by giving you things to do your first day. And also reading, you can fill endless amounts of time with reading things about the industry or catching up on stuff. But the goal of all of it is to develop a hypothesis or two about, here's a useful thing that I can do, if not from the organization as a whole, then for my colleagues, and then deliver on that quickly. And then once you do that, the cycle starts to build and have some things that you can deliver on right away. The last thing I just say is, many people are eager to make a good first impression and show that they know a lot of stuff. Actually, the first day is when you do not need to make a good first impression. It's when what you need to do is just start learning. And so asking all your dumb questions in the beginning, like, that's when people will, in this honeymoon period, is be understanding about them. Obviously, if you go around saying unethical, stupid things frequently, then you're going to develop a bad reputation. But on the assumption that you generally know what you're doing, that those first few days are just such a magical opportunity to wander into somebody's office and be like, hey, I'm new here. I don't know any better. Can you help me figure out why A comes before B in the alphabet? Kind of a thing.
And I think what's underappreciated, at least speaking from the other side, right, is that somebody who, like for us, for example, like when we,
Or
introduce
somebody,
people onto our team, it's really nice to have those people ask the questions that you no longer see because you've been there
forget.
and forget what it's like to be new. And it often illuminates like gaps or holes or helps like reprioritize the team, be like, oh yeah, why are we doing it? Why are we doing that way? Or
Totally.
yeah. And so I think, yeah, talk to your colleagues and ask your dumb questions.
Yeah, 100%. Those questions are useful information. And I just say, when we should do the version of this question that is, you're the boss and somebody comes to work for you, I got much more nervous the first day somebody shows up to work for me than the other way around, because then I'm responsible for their experience. And so if you're sitting there assuming everybody else knows what I'm supposed to be doing, but I don't, they have no idea what you're supposed to be doing either. You're all just figuring it out together. And that is the nature of modern work life. So
True, this is not advice.
this is not, I mean, in part because we don't know, and in part because we're all just guessing as we go. So, all right. Thank you, Min.
Thanks,
To be
Roy.
continued.
Find us on Twitter and we'll be back tomorrow.
Yeah, and ask us questions that you may have, comment on what we say, or just yell